Hello, everyone,
Hi,
and
everybody.
welcome to OzByDrone. I'm Greg.
I'm John. Great to have you with us again this week. Got a great program for you, a great guest, and lots of news as always.
Absolutely. We've got some good news. You've got some news that we're not going to have pictures of today. We're going to have them next week. But let's have a sneak preview. What is it we're going to share next week?
Well, next week we have been doing hover tests and the VTOL, the new aeroplane. We're moving back over to the dark side, or away from the dark side, perhaps into ArduPilot again, after spending quite a bit of time, flying DJI aircraft. So that's pretty exciting, actually. And we're at the moment just seeing how much weight this thing will lift. So that's always exciting. And getting it right. But it's been pretty much a scratch build, scratch design, and it's fantastic. Can't have more fun than sitting around building in the hangar. Wonderful fun.
As some of our viewers have regularly mentioned about various new prototype drones and stuff, the question is, can it lift a baby?
Well, this one probably could. Very small one. It's not doing too bad. We're certainly able to pick up, 3 kilos with it. So, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get into the main part of the news, I just want to share a little continuation from last week. We're doing a giveaway of one of those Wi-Fi boost boards. And to enter, you need to do a couple of really simple things. Number one, send us a photo of something where you are soldering as part of the project. Or it doesn't have to see you soldering, maybe the completed product, whatever it is. And number two, explain in the email how a Wi-Fi boost board would help you with your drone flying, whether it be for penetration or stability, or give me some of the good things that you think it'll do for you. And that prize is coming from NoLimitDrones. I'm going to have a chat to him during the week, and we'll have a look at all of the entries and see how we go. Someone's going to win it. It's worth a few $100, so make sure you do enter. So we'll leave the music in the background there, and I'll go to another piece of music while we say this. Is your drone healthy, or is it about to surprise you on your next flight? Don't wait to find out. Discover information under the hood and review the early signs of problems before you take off again. The people at AirData UAV, get the name right, the people at AirData UAV have a great piece of software. Use the discount code OzByDrone20 and you'll get a 20% discount. There is a link in the description. Now, John, you use that software every single day, correct?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, we certainly do. It's a great tracker. It's easy to use, particularly even if you've got 10 pilots that are doing flying all over the place. It's a great piece of software to use. Keeps a good eye on the aircraft maintenance-wise, and certainly helps with a lot of paperwork as well. So, yep, AirData, we love it.
Okay, and we'll leave our music there. I'm just experimenting, playing with the soundboard. The levels are not quite right, not perfect, but we're getting there. So, AirData UAV, do absolutely check that out. I just saw a message here. Joe Blaylock says he just renewed his AirData UAV because he just loves the numbers. So really good to hear that he's using that. But let's get into the news. And our first story today is about a new drone in the skies. They've released the Hubsan Zeno Mini SE. Hubsan has positioned the Zeno Mini SE aggressively with its 249-gram drone offering longer flight times than the DJI Mini 2. The Zeno Mini SE starts at $349 and should be available in North America towards the end of September. We've got a tiny video. Let's check it out. So that's their little promo. Now, just looking at that, there were a couple of things. The 4K camera, really good. The elegant white color, I don't know if that's like a kind of a Porsche red, it's going to make it go faster or something, but the flight time, I did see that they advertised on that video clip, which came from Hubsan, 45 minutes flight time, but subsequently I've seen everywhere else advertising 40 minutes. So need to clarify that. But what else have you heard about this one, John?
Look, I think Xeno, like a few other manufacturers, are moving into this micro space, we call it, 250 grams and under. A lot of great things coming regulatory-wise for that type of aircraft as well. One of the things that is sort of up on the table at the moment is the 30-metre rule, which would be a real game changer if you have protected rotating parts, i.e. you put your prop guards on, that there's scope for this aircraft to be able to operate it over and around people not involved with the operation. So that's a big one as the cameras get better as well. I also know Autel had some photos leaked from a Chinese source about their new 150-gram nano drone. Again, incredible technology coming into the very, very lightweight aircraft. They're easy to carry. Well, there's lots of great things, but I must say 45-minute flight time is a big one. Now, what you will notice as you're flying these smaller aircraft is your flight time is reduced quite significantly by any wind. So the aircraft takes quite a bit more power because of its size and available power to battle a medium-sized wind. So you won't get that kind of flight time in anything but still wind. But that's a pretty remarkable effort. I mean, to even 40 minutes is changing the maths a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just thinking, definitely the flight time is one thing. I had a look at some photos on a video from a couple of the other people who are reviewing it and have their hands on it already. Certainly the vision from the sensor was pretty good. I actually thought it was comparable to some of the others. I didn't like the color profiling out of it, so maybe you've got to do some sort of a flat profile and do some color correction. But other than that, looks like an interesting drone. The other thing to note is that it had obstacle avoidance, which at the moment it's the only sub 250 drone in that class that's got the obstacle avoidance. So definitely good for someone who's new to flying.
And it is good too. The obstacle avoidance is handy because many of these aircraft this size are flown inside, and so that's where your obstacle avoidance. Make sure the lighting is good. But these are fun. The DJI Mini 2 is fun to fly inside. You can have a great time in the house and you get good at it after a while. You won't crash into too many walls. But of course, it usually is zero wind inside, and it's also fun on a rainy day. It means you're not limited from getting your hands on an airplane, having some fun. So I think there's plenty of scope, even in commercial applications for an aircraft like this. So pretty exciting stuff as we watch that technology grow, and we see more and more features come into the 250-gram and sub type aircraft.
Yeah, absolutely. I just saw something on my screen then, and just to double check it again. Metro Drones, happy Friday, droners. Thank you for your super chat. Very much appreciated, Metro. And I saw something else just to have a quick look. GoFab Vids, I think, said something. Where was it? With regard to the competition we mentioned earlier, can it be some soldering in your camper van? Yeah, it absolutely can. Just soldering anywhere, just so that if we're going to give away a prize worth a few $100, we want to make sure that you're going to be able to use it. So show us something that you're soldering. And number two, send in why you think it's going to be good for you. So, look, any other comments about the Xeno?
No, I must admit, I think up against a DJI aircraft, they're a bit cheaper as well. You may, for those of...
The DJI was cheaper. The DJI, I think, was in US dollars 300, and the Hubsan was going for about 500.
Okay, I misread that wrong. So you mean the DJI Mavic Mini?
Yeah.
The SE, or...
Look, I think it was both the Mini and the SE, and maybe a couple of our viewers can go and double check that in the background. I was looking
prices. Yep, I think the finish on the Hubsans are a little bit different. I mean, they've certainly got very, very light airframes, but that's one of the things now. Even though you look at the features, the build quality makes so much difference. Is it going to survive that little prang into the wall? Are you going to replacing arm point, pivot points, and so forth? So. I haven't seen the aircraft, so I can't really say how this quality is built. But I know the other Hubsan aircraft didn't have quite the same, dedication to the parts, if you like. So let's see what they're going to produce in the future.
I'll just mention one other interesting thing. We've all seen the challenges with adding prop guards, for example, onto a DJI aircraft. Hubsan, the same problem will happen, but they've got an even worse issue in that the actual piece of plastic that's on the undercarriage protecting the downward vision sensors and so forth, they count their 249 grams when that piece of plastic is removed. So if you come in for a hard landing, there is a concern that you may have some issues with some of those devices underneath. Speaking of the underneath, one of the other good things that I was seeing is that it's got a downward facing high intensity LED. So for doing night flying, illuminating the ground when you're coming in for landing and helping with the optical flow sensors and so forth. So some good things, some bad things. We just got to wait a little bit longer to see it, or one of us get it in our hands before we can comment further. But an interesting aircraft. So let's move on from that and have a look at our second story of the day. We've seen many examples of drone delivery before, and blood delivery is something that, we've seen many examples of. Wingcopter has just completed a test transport of blood samples in Germany using a drone, speeding up the important healthcare drop-offs in rural areas. Without technologies such as this, deliveries can be difficult in those areas, making innovative projects like this so timely. The journey for Wingcopter was roughly 16 miles or 26 kilometres in just 18 minutes with a pneumatic tube, including 250 grams of blood samples in tow.
Wingcopter unterstützt die M4Live Drone Challenge dabei, eine Machbarkeitsstudie über den Transport von Blutproben per Drohne durchzuführen.
In diesem Projekt arbeiten wir als Team der Klinik für Anästhesiologie mit den Kollegen aus dem Institut für Transfusionsmedizin an der UMG, mit dem Projektpartner der DRF Luftrettung und anderen Partnern hier vor Ort zusammen.
Zero, please go one.
It's a nice aircraft to look at visually.
Für uns sind die wichtigsten Anwendungsfälle von Drohnen in der Medizin die Anwendungsfälle mit absoluter Notfallindikation. Das sind beispielsweise die Versendung von automatisch externen Defibrillatoren, also Geräte für die Behandlung von Herz-Kreislauf-Stillständen, oder aber auch der Transport von Notfallblutproben und perspektivisch Blutprodukten. Dafür müssen wir schauen, bleibt das Blut stabil, damit wir beispielsweise zwischen Krankenhäusern...
Let's just turn the volume down since we're not actually understanding much of it anyway, but what do you think of the aircraft?
Yeah, I love the shape of the aircraft. I've always been a fan of the anhedral tailplane, nice and elegant as well. And also, they've certainly thought about the way the thrust line works within the aircraft as well. Tilt rotors, very efficient way of using the power that you've got. And, from my experience this week, an aircraft like that can pick up a significant amount of weight once you've got plenty of weight. One of the things is in the cruise motors, you don't need much, the sort of power you would need to take off conventionally from the ground. So the mass is a little different in terms of once you get into that forward flight mode. It's a pretty good shape, isn't it? A gull wing, typical with anhedral tail. So that'll be an interesting airframe to watch as well. Seeing more and more of them, go and check out the Foxtech website if you want to see some really good-looking flying machines.
Yeah. I was just thinking the actual tube that they were carrying as well, certainly a pneumatic tube, something you'd normally expect to see in a supermarket in Australia going and moving money out in the back room. Interesting that they used that same tube as a carrier there. Don't know if that was by design, but is there any logic in why they did that, perhaps? I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I suppose anything that's biological like that that's got to be kept to a medical standard would have tube or double tube that it's in. And because they're approved and they're so available, I think rather than trying to reinvent something, you're going to carry it in, use something that the hospital already uses. That's an obvious one for them to fit into their system. So, just putting a square object in a round hole, if you like. So, that sort of things just help the flow.
Sounds good. And just a quick thank you to Wayne King, hi team, and all in chat. Thank you, Wayne, for your super chat. So that's really well appreciated. Moving on to our third story is this one over here. So this is an Australian-based story from ABC News. Drone footage was captured of what they call a megapod, and I haven't heard that term before, of nearly 100 humpback whales feeding off the coast of Australia, which locals said was the largest such gathering of animals witnessed in decades. Now, if this isn't a good use of aerial technology to go and understand things without getting so close that you're going to interfere with their ecology, I reckon it's a great use. Have you done any nature watching yourself? Oops.
No, I have actually. One time we had a beached whale up in Port Macquarie area, and we managed to go out and help, just give a little bit of help what's going on with the tides and so forth, because you can see a lot from the air in terms of the water depth and so forth and how it was going to work. But generally we've got some pretty tight restrictions around flying around marine mammals, and that's a good thing. The CSIRO and marine parks obviously have some good case for them to go and do it. So they seem to get the best photos. But you just got to check those out. It's normally around 300 meters if you're flying something very low. So make note of that.
That was going to be my next question. So what do you actually have to do to fly legal and safe? It's good that we are capturing some of these things, but how do you actually do it? Obviously, we saw that video of the guy who got a little bit too close to the alligator.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. I look at it. They're actually, the rules for flying around marine animals in Australia are published in URSA, and they're basically built around helicopters, fixed-wing aircraft, all sorts of aircraft. And so now all they've done is to that section added drones as well. So once you've got some altitude, so a fixed-wing aircraft at 1,500 feet is able to fly over them because you're not too close. As you get lower, you need to have a lateral distance as you come back. 300 meters is considered usually the minimum, for any, because if they're actually busy doing something, the whales are involved in some sort of ritual, then you will upset it if you get much closer or they notice the drone. Who knows? We don't really know. They might, be very unaffected by it. But we know from our experience with aircraft and fixed-wing helicopters and all sorts of things that you can't get too close to them for sure.
Okay. So let's move on to the next one. And this one is a titled Sponsor Deal. And initially, it's an interesting story about the drone racing. Yeah. Did I miss one? Oh, no, I missed it. I've got to give so many ka-chings to thank Mr. Ken Heron for a $20 super chat. Who does the Australian accent better, John or Greg?
Ha! Mate.
My wife is telling me that John does it better.
Leave that one out. Leave that for Stump the Yank.
My wife is telling me that John does. Junk Pick saying, OzByDrone, isn't that desk fake that you're sitting at? Yes, it is. Good observation.
Where am I sitting? Oh, where are you sitting?
Yeah, look, there's no desk there. It's just, it looks like one. But in case you didn't guess.
Yeah, there is no desk.
Well, actually, no, it's a real desk. I can just lean on it,
However, I have no hair. And that's real.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that. The Drone Racing League has landed a $100 million sponsor deal from our Algorand, which I believe is a multi-million-dollar deal for, what was the name? Cryptocurrency. But when I went to this page, there was a video about something totally unrelated, and it caught my eye. And the co-owner and CEO of Drone Deploy, Mike Wynn, talks about the integration of drone technology by some businesses and as a socially distant alternative during the coronavirus pandemic. Now, I do warn you, the video is a little bit longer one. So if you get bored, John or Grumps, just snore. It's about a 3-minute video. just snore and I'll know to cut it off. But I thought it had some really good info. So let's just check it out.
The federal aviation industry is issuing special approvals for drone use amid the coronavirus pandemic, but the move is raising new privacy and surveillance concerns. Joining us now to talk about the latest in drone technology is Mike Wynn. He's the co-founder and CEO of Drone Deploy, which is a drone software platform that helps map and analyze the collected data. Mike, thanks for joining us. So what roles are drones playing in the COVID-19 era as remote collaboration becomes an increasing focus?
Thanks for having me. We're actually seeing a tremendous drone growth across the commercial industry right now. We're seeing construction sites, energy firms, agricultural companies turn to drones as kind of the perfect socially distant worker, where you can fly a drone, capture data, and you can use the data at home as opposed to going into the field to do the inspections or maintenance yourself.
I know in real estate, they've been using drones for a while now to, inspect roofs and stuff like that. But every time I see a drone flying, I always think about the privacy concerns. So more drones in the air, more privacy concerns. What do you say to that?
Absolutely. There have been concerns. You're right, with more drones in the air. There's, I think, almost 500,000 commercial drones flying in America right now. And privacy and security has always been of utmost concern in this industry. In general, what we found is that drones aren't the best tool to actually invade privacy. They're generally flying high above people. They have essentially cell phone cameras on them. And so they're really good at understanding places and inspecting assets, not so good at looking at individuals, just like you're seeing in this video. Not useful on a human level, very useful on a construction site or power plant level.
So how is this technology being used to address specific challenges in industries like agriculture or energy?
Well, we take those industries today. It's actually what they're finding. Take agriculture. It's actually much harder for people to do their jobs, to actually speak to people, to actually go into the fields and to be around others, given the COVID-19 situation. And so what companies are doing is they're leveraging drones to fly as opposed to walk around. And they're using that data to share over the internet as opposed to in person. And so it's a big part of this whole transformation to digital mechanisms for these companies. How do we not just rely on people meeting others, but actually do work over video conference? How do we provide the data that would normally be gotten by walking around a farm or around a construction site and actually share that over a computer?
So I'll pause it there. Yeah, I got it. I picked just the right time. Look, there's more to that story, and if you do want to watch the rest of it, the links are in the description to all of our stories as they are every week. So go and check it out. Drone Deploy, good company. But feedback on that. How do we use drones for COVID? It's like a remote person for a lot of the stuff in construction and so on.
Yeah, it is. I mean, they're just fitting into the current news space. We know that the aircraft can be used that way for sure, and have known dirty, dull, and dangerous work, whether it's work in mining or whatever it is. That's already been there. The COVID lamp is perhaps a good marketing thing to use at the current time. But having said that, Drone Deploy, as you said, a good company, and I think they'd love to position themselves as the Microsoft, if you like, of the drone industry. They certainly cast their net pretty wide and do a lot of work, for commercial operators. So, we'll see how that goes for them. But again, it's a good little PR exercise. I couldn't help sort of smile when the first question was going to come back. What about privacy? And I thought that was answered well. So, we know that too. We've been talking about that on this show. And I think getting that word out there was as important as any other in terms of related to COVID or whatever, but talking about privacy, which always comes up first. It's really going to be the first thing that comes up in people's mind.
And that's exactly why I included the story. I wanted to make sure we got that privacy bit in there because so many people panic about it. Drones are bad. They're all spying on me and all of this. But the reality is it doesn't work that way. But let's move on. We've got one more story before we get to our guest, and that is this one. And, well, we've talked about drone delivery many times. This one is titled Illegal Delivery. A female inmate and a Costa Mesa man are facing charges after working together to try to smuggle drugs into an Orange County jail using a drone. The 30-year-old inmate is accused of calling her accomplice using a jailhouse phone and directing him on where to land the drone inside the facility, according to a news release from the Orange County District Attorney's Office.
A Costa Mesa man is under arrest for allegedly using a drone in an attempt to smuggle drugs into the Lacey jail in the city of Orange. The drone landed in an outdoor recreation area of the jail. Police say it was carrying heroin, methamphetamine, Xanax pills, and muscle relaxers. An investigation led detectives to the home of 43-year-old Shay Cody Smart, where they served a search warrant. Detectives confiscated illegal firearms, fentanyl, and a controller that was determined to pair with the drone that was used. Smart was arrested on suspicion of multiple felony drug and firearms charges.
So, number one, you're dumb for saying, hello, let's use this monitored phone to go and arrange where to land. So there's strike one.
There's going to be one, but the hanging on to the controller, getting caught with the controller, and then seeing that's the one that's bound with the aircraft is going to give it away every time. Certainly lots of other stuff there. You see what the drone was carrying. So using a mini there, it looked like a rather small aircraft, and that's because it keeps it. They're pretty quiet as well. We've worked in the security side, the other side of drone detection inside prisons quite a bit, and most of the flights, if you do it at night and you actually drop rather than land the aircraft in the prison, be able to drop where you are, it's very, very difficult to find. However, these are the type of mitigations that law enforcement and corrections are using at the moment. And it's a big problem. It happens a lot more. These are the ones that just get caught, but it's happening all the time. This is a whole new game for getting things inside prisons. Very, very easy. Yeah.
All I can say is just looking at that story, it was interesting. So, number one, making the mistake there. Number two, landing it in the prison. Number three, I was just confused about the payload. Muscle relaxer?
Yeah, well, who knows what that could have been. I imagine anything that's illegal we wouldn't be putting legal stuff in there as well. One of the times, Greg, that we found was the easiest way to get in. One of the scenarios we did was we had two drones, and we launched a Phantom on the east side of the prison area, and because everybody put their eyes over there, and all we did was fly outside the perimeter. But of course, it mustered all the attention. And meanwhile, on the other side of the prison, we did a quick drop, a large drop with an Inspire, and no one saw it or noticed it because they were looking over here while the other hand did this. So, there are certainly holes in the way you can stop this kind of thing at the moment. So it's a long way off getting it right.
And don't forget, even if it is a sub 250 drone, once you put your drugs on it, you are in violation if you haven't registered it.
Exactly right, Lloyd. You are in violation either way.
Speaking of violations, I think it's time that we get someone who can tell us all about the violations. We'll get our guest up, a drone lawyer, Mr. Dean Greenblatt. G'day, Dean. How you doing?
Well, is it good morning or good afternoon or good night, Greg?
It's still morning. It's 11:28 in the morning here in Sydney.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So, what do you think about that story? I had to make sure it was positioned just before you came in.
Well, criminals are nothing if not stupid. So they'll take every advantage they can with every piece of equipment they can, and inevitably they get caught. So it's kind of fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. So the reason for getting you on, we've previously spoken to Jason Harrison, and also we've spoken to Ryan Latourette. Are you able to give us any updates on any of those stories, first of all? Let's start with that.
Sure. A week ago, we have a new case that indirectly involves Jason Harrison because he is the current president of the Michigan Coalition of Drone Operators. We also have Jason Gilman, who's a lead plaintiff in a new case, and we're suing the Ottawa County on the west side of the lower peninsula of Michigan for much of the same thing. We have a county that has decided to come up with their own set of ordinances that bans the flight of drones in their parks area. And after we brought the lawsuit, they decided to double down and come up with a revision to the ordinance which bans the flight of drones, curiously enough, over the Ottawa County Jail or within 500 feet of the Ottawa County Jail and their courthouse and a few other locations. So we did have a hearing on that last Friday. I can report that we didn't win, but we also didn't lose. The hearing was on a motion for an injunction to prevent the county from enforcing their ordinance, and the judge decided that she needed to hear a little bit more information. It's a familiar story. We did the same thing in a different county here in Michigan, and that case did end up well in Genesee County. We expect it's going to turn out pretty well in Ottawa County.
Yeah. So instead of these counties and these different local government areas doing what they're doing and making their own laws, is there in the US a federal framework where they could say, hey, we don't want a drone over our jail. Okay, let's go and get a TFR or a permanent restriction above the jail or something like that. How does that work in the US?
Sure. So we have a dual sovereignty in the United States. We have the federal government, and then we have state government. I'm sure it's somewhat similar in Australia and other countries. So in the federal government, the FAA, as many probably know, they do regulate drones now under FAR Part 107. And so there are a set of restrictions there. But in addition to that, in the state of Michigan, and I think 23 other states, I might be wrong on that specific number, it's always changing, we have a preemption statute. And Michigan's preemption statute is a great one. And it basically says that political subdivisions cannot regulate the ownership or operation of drones. And of course, any ordinance by a local municipality or a local a county in Michigan, it's a political subdivision of the state, they can't regulate drones. So here we have a county that's regulating drones.
So you just mentioned that the state has a no preemption law on the books. Can the federal government, if it wanted to, do the same thing? And have they considered that, just to avoid the confusion? Because it does make it difficult. And instead of saying, hey, you having this grey area, say, hey, this is the process that you need to go through so that we can register no-fly zones for you in a way that's going to make sense legally. Is that something that could or should happen?
Well, I don't think it's particularly necessary in this case. The Federal Aviation Act 1958 gives absolute sovereignty over airspace, navigable airspace, to the United States government. So once a drone is in the air, the FAA has ultimate jurisdiction over that. Even if that, in this case, we have an ordinance that conflicts with that law, the federal government preempts those local laws, even if it was by the state. Now, really what they're trying to do is restrict the takeoff and landing. So if you're on the property of a county park in Ottawa, or you're on the county property in front of the jail and you want to take off and land a drone, I think what they're really trying to do is regulate that activity. And the federal government leaves that up to local and state governments. So we can regulate, and it's very similar with manned aircraft as well. You can have a lake behind your house, a seaplane can fly over, but there have been some laws that there can be a local ordinance banning the operation of seaplanes on the water. So you can fly over it at a foot above the water, but once you touch down, it's something different. Similar here, the county is trying to regulate taking off and landing on county property. They're also trying to regulate overflight, which is a clear violation of federal preemption. But be that as it may, those local ordinances are interfering with the state scheme. So that's what we're trying to litigate in Ottawa County. Should it all be handled at the federal level? I don't know. I'm just dealing with the laws as they are. And I certainly have opinions about it, but I don't think the federal government should necessarily be involved at all aspects because they're not particularly responsive to individuals.
Yeah. How about instead if they're not going to regulate the takeoff and landing, but they could provide a framework or a model? This is what we believe is a set of laws that you could implement in your state. Cut and paste, here's the template for what we believe is a safe way of taking off and landing, encouraging states to go and adopt that. I don't know. It's just, as long as it's not a countrywide set framework, it's confusing, and that causes more problems in the long run. How could you fix that up?
Right. Well, the preemption statutes are designed to prevent that because they prevent a patchwork of laws throughout the state. They prevent, and nationally, we would prevent a patchwork of laws that would prevent interference with overflight.
But that only covers the overflight. And as you said before, once you're in the air, there's no doubt about it. How do you actually get some unification of takeoff, landing, and operation?
Well, unfortunately, right now, drone operations and drone operators and pilots are such a small minority. Nobody is going to create what we would typically have, which would be an interstate compact, which would come up with a preferred set of laws that other states could follow. And right now, we have complete ignorance on the part of legislators and county officials. They don't know what drones are. They can only imagine that we have these spy cameras and they're constantly dropping drugs in jails, and the allegation or the defense in the Ottawa County case is that someone could fly a drone up to the window of a judge who's considering signing an order and could look at the piece of paper that she's signing. I mean, it's really, science fiction. But those are the people that we're dealing with, and it's the fear of the unknown, and ignorance breeds fear. That's what we're dealing with these local ordinances. And I think as drones become a little bit more common, a little bit more accepted, and we're likely to see a little bit more uniformity in the laws. But right now, we're just in the nascent, the beginning of drone operations. They've only been around for a few years.
Speaking of ignorance, John, have you got any questions? I'm kidding.
Yeah, no, thanks very much. It's very interesting, listening to this side of things, because understanding where, as I said, where state and federal and local jurisdictions start and lend off has become, a recent issue. We've had some great videos where that's been pointed out by people who have sort of had these misunderstanding about how which law applies to them. And I think it's great to have that sort of information and understand that, so know what your rights are, and you always want to know when you might be breaking the law too. Those of us that don't want to be in that position, it's good to know what the law is and where it sits.
We're doing what we can here in Michigan to educate the judiciary, and what we're looking for ultimately is perhaps a decision higher up in the courts, so that it can be binding throughout the state, and then we can move on to other states.
Yeah, no, I think it really puts some clarity around it as well, and also it's going to unlocking these things and sorting this out is going to let things progress as well. You're always going to have problems if you don't fix this part of the house first. You're going to get stuck down the road with legislative things holding you up. And of course, we never, in this hobby originally, we never thought much about how it was going to, the implications of legislative change. In the early days, of course, we were just model aircraft. And that was easy. That's been around for a long time. There's a lot of rules and things, but it didn't account for the amount of technology and access that drones would have beyond what model aircraft have, of course, and how they're used.
So that's an excellent point, John. And that is kind of one of the things we're dealing with in this recent case, because the county, in their defense, are trying to say, well, really, we don't have a problem with drones. We have a problem with cameras. We don't want the cameras looking at people that are in the parks, and we don't want them looking at the jail. It's a security issue. It's privacy and security, and that's what they're going to scream about.
And interesting, one of the places where we looked at this for a local ordinance, Dean, was that they said, well, how are we going to get this? It's going to be a lot of work for us to have this sort of issue having a camera, airborne camera. And I noticed that some of the streets that they had in the local county, they had street video cameras. And so they were able to look at some of the, the problem areas in the city. They had cameras there. It made it a lot safer. People were very happy about having it. And I said, well, you've already got some structure there for maintaining public order and safety in your area. And so perhaps in a positive light, you've already got that availability, that they're not going to actually be doing that. And people often then don't mind if they're out and about and it does provide a level of public safety and public convenience, then, they're going to welcome it. It's going to make the place feel a lot safer.
Well, I think opinions on monitored cameras and being watched is something that is a very sensitive topic here.
Yeah.
Yep, sure. Okay.
I've got a question from Jason Gilman, and he's saying to ask Dean about the county not following their own policy.
Right. So Jason happens to be the lead plaintiff in the Ottawa County case, so he knows it very well, and he's a smart guy. But I think what Jason is pointing out is that there is a application process if you want to operate a drone in the county parks at Ottawa. And the application requires approval by the county commissioners and the director of the park system, and it requires an applicant to only do it for commercial purposes and to obtain $1 million liability policy, naming the county as a loss payee and a named insured. Really onerous provisions for someone who just wants to recreationally fly in the county parks, which is not permitted. Now, what happened was there was a FOIA request to determine who it was, if any, that had applied for permission to fly in the county parks. It turns out no one had been authorized to fly in the county parks, but yet on a social media page for the Ottawa County Parks, their own media page, they had drone footage relatively recently. So we know they're flying for themselves, but the restrictions are for the little people.
Okay. Let me move into another quick area. Privacy. It's the one that we did hear in that story earlier on today. Where do you see that going? How is it something that's going to get resolved, or is it going to be, if you're flying in a legal, lawful place, then you can film whatever you like? Where is it going to end up?
That I don't know, but what I do know is that it is legal in public places where there's no expectation of privacy, or no reasonable expectation of privacy, that people can be filmed. You can be walking down a city street anywhere in the United States, and you don't have a reasonable expectation of privacy that would preclude someone else from videotaping you. If you want that privacy, you have it in your own home or in your curtilage of your home. So there are laws. Drone technology is new, but the existing laws are sufficient to protect people and their privacy interests, I believe.
Yeah, okay. I've got another question here. Do you have any advice for flyers when they're approached by law enforcement?
So certainly Ryan LaTourette was very familiar with this, probably talked about it when he was on your show earlier. The FAA they actually published a booklet about how law enforcement should handle interactions with drone operators. And under the FAA regulations currently, if someone has a 107 certificate, they have to provide it. They have to provide a photo ID proving that it's them. We also have the Spectre remote ID coming out, which will show not only the operation of the drone, but also the location of the remote controller. And so you have to comply with those FAA regulations. You have to provide your identity in the form of a photo ID, and if you have a 107 certificate, and to the extent that they request it, the registration for your drone.
Okay. And have you heard much about the challenge by, I can't remember the name of the organisation, about remote ID, where they're taking the FAA to court, and where's that at, if you've heard anything about it?
Right, the DRL Drone Racing League has a case. I don't know the current status of that case, but I know the other lawyers involved.
Okay.
And they're in good hands.
Okay, sounds good. I've got one other thing. I'm trying to understand what he's saying here. How do you stop a drone breaching the difference drone conflict? I don't know what happened there with that. Maybe GoFabVids can explain what that was. But any other last comments for you about, flying legally or the law in general as it applies to drone pilots? Any other general comments?
Well, sure. Anybody in any jurisdiction can be a supporter of these preemption laws, and they're absolutely necessary. We have to deal with such a complex web of regulations as it is, but having to deal with it as you cross imaginary lines on the ground and to be fully knowledgeable about what it is from one jurisdiction to another is really unrealistic, and it's just an opportunity for innocent people to be caught up in the criminal justice system. And that's one of the issues, the big issues with the Ottawa County ordinances is a 90-day misdemeanor. You can be put into the clink for 90 days because you're flying a drone. And I'm sure that there are some that would love to see drone operators thrown in jail.
Yeah, okay. I've got one other question. Just Metro Drones is asking about whereabouts in Michigan are you from, just out of interest?
Sure. I'm in Bloomfield Hills, which is kind of between the city of Detroit and the city of Pontiac. So right here in the heart of the Motor City.
Okay. Sounds good. Look, we'll leave it there, but there's one thing we do like to... Oh, John, did you have a question?
No, I think that was great. Some really good advice there. Thanks, Dean. And again, we've got to follow this because it's going to be changing. There's going to be a lot of things that come into play, and for every different jurisdiction, getting this sorted out. So keep your ear to the ground, everybody.
Okay. And at this time, Dean, I don't know how much about this you know, but... And the sound.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's time to play Stump the Yank.
It's doing that funny thing. There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and anyone else in between, it's time to play the game that we love and our guests hate. It's time to play Stump the Yank. Okay, so Dean, the deal here is... Sorry, say again?
Hit me with your best.
Yeah,
okay.
Lloyd.
So Lloyd is our honorary stumper, and we give you a little bit of Aussie trivia. So let's see what Lloyd's got for us today.
Let's see, where was it? I don't want to use that one. Okay. What is a brass resoux? Is it an instrument that the Australians use, like the didgeridoo, or whatever that's called? Or is it one of their favorite drinks, or does it mean they're very poor?
How many stereotypes can we have for possible answers?
Well, is it a beer? The middle one's a beer, right? It's always got to be a popular choice.
Yeah, popular drink, which is beer. Yeah,
of course.
So which one is it? Is it
a musical instrument, a beer, or something a prostitute would wear,
or that you're broke? Yeah. No, it's not a brass brazier, a brass resoux, but yeah.
So what did we have?
Yeah.
It means you're broke. Or is a brass. It doesn't have a brass resoux.
I don't have a brass resoux. Yeah, that's right. It means you're
broke. I'm going to have to go with the non-stereotype. We'll go with the last answer, the C.
Yeah, right. That's the right answer.
Okay.
Oops,
wrong one. There we go.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Now, this next one, and I may pronounce it wrong, but I'm going to pronounce it the way I see it. It's... What is a bunyip? Is it a mythical animal? Is it or mythical outback creature? Is it one of the best beers ever made in Australia? Or is it a vegetable like a turnip? A bunyip. What is that?
I thought it's the thing on my foot, but again, I'll have to go with, what was the first option?
You got a mythical outback creature. The second one is one of their top selling beers, and the third one is a vegetable like a turnip.
I'll go with A, first one.
Wow, well done. Well done.
Wow.
2 for 2.
All right. 2 for 2.
Is he going to get the trifecta?
We don't need to have mythical animals here. We've got enough strange ones anyway.
Yeah, well, it was on there, but it was, let's go with my favorite. What is a budgie smuggler? Now, is that somebody who smuggles birds out of Australia? Because they have tons of birds there. Is it the name of a famous Australian pirate? Or is it Speedos, swimming trunks?
Well, I watched the Jason interview, so I know it's the last one.
Okay. Yeah, I thought you might know that one just if you saw the last one. So
you got to change. You got to change the answer to that one, or is it a swimming costume worn by the former Prime Minister of Australia? Something a little bit more obscure.
That's true. I keep forgetting about that.
He got 3 out of 3. He's doing well.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's doing good. Yep, yeah. He's a winner tonight.
Okay. Look, you win our honorary Australian of the day. So welcome to Australia. The only problem is even Australians can't get into our country at the moment. So too bad. Go home.
I'll look at some pictures on the internet.
Yeah, there you go.
That's it. Google that's.
So, Dean, thank you for being with us today. Sit in the background if you like. If you've got anything you want to interject as we go through the rest of our stories, just put your hand up. We'll work it out. And let's get into the rest of the news. Thanks again, Dean. And if any of our viewers have got questions for Dean as we finish off today, throw them in chat and we'll make sure we get them to him as well. So, our next story. A new video has been released by Boeing showcasing their uncrewed MQ-25T1 drone refueling an F-35C fighter jet mid-air. Now, I thought I'd seen one of these before, but I looked back at our past history and I couldn't find it. Have we seen this before, John?
I'm thinking we might have. I think I've seen a short video of it actually doing the refueling.
Which is what we're about to see now, but this story is supposedly just new and fresh and only just released by Boeing, so...
Yeah, that's interesting. So one of the other things that probably comes up to mention this week, one of the highest flying and fastest drones got launched this week, and that was the SpaceX air mobility vehicle. My friend Hamish rang me up and he said, hey, look at that. They've sent civilians up in a drone. And more or less it was. It was one of the first air mobility drones, I suppose you can say. We look to the way Uber's going to have taxi drones eventually. Well, this one went into outer space.
I was about to say maybe it needs to be a space taxi.
Yeah, space taxi, exactly.
Yeah,
that was pretty exciting too. But essentially, of course, the returning rocket parts and all of that stuff is pretty much using, the idea, Isaac Newton's ideas that we use in our aircraft. So that was kind of a nice thing to see this week.
And certainly the mobile platform that you had built outside the back of your home there, they're using that, I hear, as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, they can take some design ideas off that, but I wouldn't guarantee them.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to our next one. And this one it's some good flying in there. The story is entitled Glass Sculpture. A new video, wrong one. The Garden Shed drone video showing, try again. This drone video showing the glass sculpture in the Climatron. It was a delicate and time-consuming process to move the sculpture into this location. But what about this flight? Orbiting a glass sculpture in a glass house with overhanging vegetation is a fun combination. So I'm just trying to imagine the thought process as you're doing the orbit around this sculpture in the middle, John. You're obviously not wanting to hit it, and always be very situationally aware about all of the other trees and things around.
You're going to get a nice soft landing if you come down anywhere. That's kind of good. Yeah, one of the things about seeing where you're going with these things, and I did some this week. Of course, when you're actually looking at a structure in front of you, you can space yourself perfectly. The big trap is when you're flying backwards fast and getting a revealing shot as you're flying backwards through trees. It's a great looking shot, but you need to keep your eyes on the aircraft, because plenty of times I've practiced that where I've nearly had a whoop. So yeah, but flying FPV in those situations are the way you've got to do it. You're not really going to be able to fly around without using FPV on that situation.
But the question is, do you, if there are no cars around, do you just go and fly it forward and edit it backwards?
There you go. That's a
trick
way of doing it too. Yeah, it is.
Let's move on to our next one. We've got 3 quick ones. Let's go through them. Oops, wrong button. Try that again. Press. Let's dump the yank again. No. So everyone's heard of the traditional hall monitor. Well, one hall monitor, Bryce, he's using technology to help him keep his eyes on the hallways using a tello. Now, I do joke about him being a hall monitor, but I just thought it was a really cool video of, this was just on Reddit, of a kid wandering around the halls of his school with a drone in front of him, but it would be an interesting way to go and do that job.
Absolutely. We're going to see more indoor technology. The tello is great fun to fly inside, of course, being only under 100 grams. But, of course, the next level of technology is going to be in warehouses, where talking about hall monitoring, where the drones are actually going to fly back and forward, keeping a good record of what's going on in the workshop at the time. So, yeah, hall monitoring is going to be one of those new things that you're going to see everywhere.
Yeah. Okay, 2 more to go. This one is what was entitled An Uplifting Display. Studio Drift creates collections of memories. And this one is of Burning Man using lit up drones. I've actually sped this up at twice the speed of the video that they originally gave us because it was a bit long, but you can certainly see it a lot more impressively when it's sped up. This is called Drone Stories. The studio hoped that the light installations would create meaningful performances to connect with people. The interesting bit, there's a guy there in a couple of minutes, and we'll see him, and they actually rotate him around the display as well.
Well, look at that.
Yeah.
Burning Man, and you hope he doesn't.
Hang on, have I got a fire?
Have you ever been to that, Lloyd? You've been to that Burning Man thing? That's not your scene? I didn't imagine.
No.
Setting fire? No. Isn't that the one where everybody gets together and, it goes crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy people, right?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm crazy, but I ain't that crazy.
I didn't need to ask. I kind of figured that, but you might have had some secrets that you wanted to share, so...
No. No, that ain't going to happen. Not in my lifetime.
I get it.
Oops, we got a little bit of echo there. Let's go to our last clip now, and we'll have a little wrap up with the 3 of us there in a couple of minutes. The last clip. Now, I'm going to give advance notice that I'll probably get demonetized for playing this, but I'm not a big channel and I'm not making truckloads of money on it anyway. We're going to play an opening sequence from the Apple show, The Morning Show, which is a series, and this is season 2, which was premiering right now today as we speak on Apple TV Plus. And in this one, after the opening credits roll in the first episode of their second season, the camera brings you straight into the heart of New York at the onset of the pandemic. It's March 2020 and the city appears empty. Over the course of this 90-second clip, The cameras, both on a drone and some mounted on a truck, swoop you over the Washington Square Park arch before you bringing for a ride along Fifth Avenue, the West Side Highway, Times Square, Central Park West, to name a few locations. At the end, you can hear the sirens as you catch a glimpse of the Samaritan's Purse Field, whatever that is, hospital, that was briefly set up in Central Park. Let's have a look.
Return to me, oh my dear, I'm so lonely.
So, Dean, I'm going to ask you right now, as the drone lawyer in the background, tell me, what do you need to do this legally, especially during COVID? Is it easier to fly these weird things?
Wow. I'm imagining that in New York City that there are quite a few hoops to jump through to get the necessary permits to fly. But I imagine they're doing it I can't imagine it is this unoccupied, this devoid of people, even during the pandemic. This must have been very early in the morning to be this empty, and they probably are using some special effects. But yeah, the permits from City of New York, I can't imagine.
Lots of paperwork.
Beautiful, though.
By the way, if you're not watching it, that series is absolutely wonderful, The Morning Show. For those of you who've got Apple TV, go and watch it. I'm having a ball.
There's some very nice footage. I agree with Dean. It's beautifully shot. And you can't make any assumptions to they might have done all of the paperwork to get that done and use whatever special effects were needed to do it. I often wonder about that with the cine stuff as well. There's got to be all sorts of hoops that you've got to do to fly those sort of things inside around people, and whether the drone is light enough and protected enough. Look, you don't know until you know all of the details anyway. But just great footage to look at. Beautiful.
But let me just say this, the production company was actually Apple. So there's no way that Apple, by the nature of who they are, would be doing that without the right permits. They've done it. They've jumped through the hoops.
Yep.
They have all the money there is and all the lawyers that they can buy.
Yeah,
I'm sure they could do it legally.
Yeah.
They could.
Yeah. Plus there's production companies in Australia, or in New York, that are always producing stuff there. I mean, all the different legal shows and stuff. So they block off areas just for that.
Yep.
And so, yeah, them being Apple, I'm sure they had no problems getting the permits. And besides, the song was about come back to me, and that's what New York was trying to get people to do. They want to see that because they're going broke up there.
Come Back to Me is the song I like to sing when I push the return to home button. It's kind of always one of those things that goes through your mind, isn't it? Boom, Tish, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I was talking about Apple. Ask our very knowledgeable listener base. The new iPad 6 came out this week. The new iPad Mini 6, I should say. Got a USB-C port, a few little different things. Has anybody used it with their drone yet? I can't find anything available. And it's usually the YouTube channels are full of the latest tech. So anyone, you got one of those there? Is that yours, Dean?
It is. I think it's a 2.
Oh, it's a 2, a Mini 2. Well, we know that one works with some older models, but I'm really keen to find out about the new iPad 6 Mini's got lots of power, and obviously your big deal is the operating system. So if we get any words in the chat, anyone trying it, I'd love to hear how the results.
I don't think it's been released yet. It hasn't officially. I mean, it's been announced. They're taking pre-orders like on the iPhone 13 as of today, and probably the same thing on the Mini 6. It has the A15 processor. I mean, I have an iPad 12.9 2021 with the M1 processor, and that thing is smoking. And I can just imagine using, and that Mini 6 has the A15. Well, basically, it's the same. It's similar to the M1 as far as its processing, and but I can imagine using that would be perfect for the drones.
Yeah,
You know?
I think it would too. Hopefully, it's compatible, and iOS 15, which is going to be used on the new Mini 6 as well. That's another big one. Whether it works with the SDK, so that's a big deal in terms of using other software, third-party software, and how the SDKs work. Often they take a little time to monitor it, but a lot of the software app people often get the release early of the betas of the new iOS. So who knows? As I said, there's nothing out there yet. Keen to see.
Yeah, it's not out yet. I think the 24.
Okay.
I think I saw today because I was looking at the iPhone 13 to upgrade to that, and I think they said I can pre-order it today, and I'd get it on the 24th, or it's going to be released the 24th of this month. So, be next week for anybody's doing anything, unless you were in the beta testing and you've already got one. You know.
Yeah, right. Sure.
I don't.
Well, the iPad Mini is absolutely indispensable to me. I use it not only for flying my Mavic Pro, but also use it in the aircraft because we run ForeFlight on it. I saw Jason Gilman commenting here that he's waiting for to pick up an iPad Mini 6. I get a new one every time I drop the old one.
And you're running a Mini too, so you haven't dropped it in a long time then, right?
No, but I did drop the first one.
I got a quick
time to drop that one then and upgrade.
Yeah,
that's right.
I got a quick question for you, John. What is your favorite device for a screen when you're connecting to a controller? Phone, iPad? Is it iPad Mini? What is it you use?
I'm using the previous generation of an iPad Pro, the smaller one. So remember when they had the smaller iPad Pro? I absolutely love it. My biggest problem with it now, and I've had it a little while, as I said, because it's a generation old, is the battery life. Because if you're in daylight and you're using a fair bit of brightness, and sometimes we go out to work, we want to work 6 hours, and we're not getting that out of that unit. So I'm hoping that the Mini 6, the biggest thing I'll be looking for is battery life. Also, the amount of screen real estate. Lots of people like to use these bigger screens just because being able to get all of that information onto the screen and being able to work with it, and rather than the phone often is way too small. Even the bigger phones still don't cut it. I have seen rigs with the large iPad Pro, Lloyd, that you've got the 12.9 inch version, and boy, what a way to work! It's fantastic, just because it's got the ability to show you so much. You're basically looking at a mini TV set of your camera feed and seeing all of its.
Yeah, it's a 13-inch TV in 4K.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm watching movies on it. They're better than what's on my television because, and I was just looking. Yeah, it's the 24th when it will be available, and I think it's going to be with 500 nits of brightness. So not as many nits as the iPad Pro 2021, the 12.9, which I think is 1,600 nits. I think is the max brightness on that. So
that outruns the crystal sky stuff. You need that kind of brightness to work in daylight for sure.
Yeah, but it also has a new non-reflective. It also has a new non-reflective screen on it, so that will help a lot in using it for a. This is the Mini 6 I'm telling you about now. It has a new non-reflective type screen that should help you in daylight, anyways. So that will clear up a lot of things, make it perfect for what we do.
Yep, absolutely.
And look, thank you, gents, for being with us today. Thank you, Dean, especially for being with us. Before we do anything else, though, I've got to put this up because someone was just asking me to enter the competition to win a Wi-Fi signal booster. Send your photograph of some soldering work together with an explanation why you think you need a signal booster, how is it going to help you with your flying. Put that in an email to upload@gregkuhnert.com. Number 2, do follow us on social media at OzByDrone on Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, DLive, and a number of other places. And lastly, if you've got anything physical, and I do have to show in a couple of moments some postcards that have been sent in this week from Trevor. That's the postal address, 5/127 Princess Highway, Sylvania, New South Wales, 2224, Australia. Some postcards. Here's the first one, and I haven't yet taken a photo, but this is from Trevor. That's number one. And I've got a second one, and this is out of Coffin Bay. Let me see. This is the Coffin Bay photograph. Okay, maybe not. But this is from the Eyre Peninsula. And Trevor's basically saying to me in a chat the other day that he's doing photographs from the different parts of the Eyre Peninsula, and he's going to cover it all end to end. And we'll do a postcard kind of review of all of those pictures in the coming weeks when we've got the whole collection together. So thank you, Trevor. And if anyone else wants to send postcards from around the world, you've got the address. It's on the screen. Send it in. So last words from our panel today. Let's get the three-shot up there. Let's go with you first, Grumpy. Your last words of the day.
Well, you know what I say. Be kind, treat each other better than you would treat yourselves. And remember, everybody matters, including old farts like me.
Everyone matters, including lawyers.
And lawyers. Lawyers, yes. Forgot. Got to include those.
Yeah. Dean, any last words from you? How do people get in touch with you if they find themselves foul of the law?
Yeah, one of the best ways is email. My initials, DGG at mnsi.net. And I think you have a link in there to a LinkedIn profile. That works too. Mm-hmm. Greg and John and Lloyd, I appreciate you having me on. I enjoyed it.
Okay. Thank you. It was great to have you on. And John, last words from you before we wrap up.
Thanks so much, Dean. It's going to be great. Please feel free. Come and join us anytime, and let's keep up with the laws. Very interesting topic. Good to have a catch up from time to time. So everybody take care, fly safe, fly within the law, and see you next week.
And as we go, I'm just going to share with people who our guest is next week. Let me press a button or two. We've got Laurent from the YouTube channel UMI Trip, and he's got some beautiful footage that we're going to be sharing next week. So make sure you stay tuned for that next week. That's all we've got time for today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being part of the show. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.